Miss Folkers, what is the Trail of Tears? Did someone cry hiking?
No, the Trail of Tears is a name given to the route taken by the Indians that were to leave their homeland. Let me tell you about the Trail of Tears from the beginning. The Trail of Tears began with the passage of the Indian Removal Act in 1830. President Andrew Jackson worked with Congress to allow the government to take away Indian title to land in the Southeast. The Indian Removal Act involved a group of Indians known as the Five Civilized Tribes. These tribes were the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muskogee, and Seminole. American settlers wanted the government to remove Indians from the Southeast. The settlers wanted more land, and many of them were intruding on Indian lands.
So the Indians cried because they had to leave their homes?
I am sure many cried because they had to leave their land, but they also suffered as they traveled to Oklahoma. John G. Barnett knew many of the Indians and was able to speak their language. As he wrote in the letter known as A Soldier Recalls the Trail of Tears, he witnessed the suffering firsthand. He said,
"On the morning of November the 17th, we encountered a terrific sleet and snowstorm with freezing temperatures, and from that day until we reached the end of the fateful journey on March the 26th, 1839, the sufferings of the Cherokees were awful. The trail of the exiles was a trail of death. They had to sleep in the wagons and on the ground without fire. And I have known as many as 22 of them to die in one night of pneumonia due to ill treatment, cold, and exposure. Among this number was the beautiful Christian wife of Chief John Ross. This noble-hearted woman died a martyr to childhood, giving her only blanket for the protection of a sick child. She rode thinly clad through a blinding sleet and snowstorm, developed pneumonia, and died in the still hours of a bleak winter night, with her head resting on Lieutenant Gregg's saddle blanket."
in 1831, the Choctaw were the first to be forced to leave. They had no food, supplies, or help. Thousands died. In 1835, some Cherokees negotiated the Treaty of New Ekataw. It traded Cherokee land east of the Mississippi for $5 million and land in Oklahoma. But there were Cherokees not happy with the treaty. In 1836, the Creeks were forced to march to Oklahoma. 3,500 of them died. By 1837, 46,000 Indians were removed from southeastern states. This gave the white settlement 25 million acres of land. In 1838, 16,543 Cherokees were removed because gold was discovered in Georgia. Between 2,000 and 6,000 Cherokees died during the removal. About 100 Cherokees hid from the soldiers and lived off the land in Georgia and other states. Cherokees that lived on a private land did not have to move. 400 Cherokees lived on a land in the Great Smoky Mountains, owned by William Holland Thomas. He was a white man who was adopted by the Cherokees as a young boy. 200 others helped the U.S. Army hunt down and capture the family of Telsey. These Cherokees were named Eastern Band of the Cherokee Nation. The Eastern Band of the Cherokee Nation filed a claim against the United States. The U.S. Court of Claims ruled in their favor on May 18, 1905. The tribe's eligible people and families received $1 million. This equals $27,438,023 today. The court received over 125,000 applications for verification of tribal enrollment for the funds. This was called the Gwynn-Miller Roll. The court approved more than 30,000 people to share the funds. In 1987, 2,200 miles of the trails were authorized to mark the removal of the Cherokees. It is called the Trail of Tears National Historic Trail. It is in 9 states and covers land and water routes.
That is such a sad story. Why would the United States take land away from people?
Greed is the real reason. The white settlers thought they were entitled to the land and gold, so removing the Indians was President Jackson's way of keeping the white settlers happy. He said that it was good for all parties. The Indians would not be near the settlement of whites and they would be free of the power of the states. He actually said, "Perhaps cause them gradually, under the protection of the government and through the influence of good counsels, to cast off their savage habits and become an interesting, civilized, and Christian community." Many Americans supported the Indian Removal Act, as most of them would benefit financially. I agree, students. It is a very, very sad story.